and welcome, welcome to another episode of the Pixelated Sausage Show. Hi. How are y'all doing? Hopefully well. Of course, I am your host, Marcus Nez, and today I've got a slew of games to talk about, including Terra Memoria, BioInk Redemption, Windstorm, Start of a Great Friendship Remastered, Garten of Banban or Banban 1 through 4, Rogue, True Colors, A Date with Deception, and Bouncy Chicken. I know what you're thinking. That's a lot of games. Some weird ones in there, maybe. But we'll get to those when we get to those. So, I don't really have anything else to talk about. Trying to think about movies or this or that. I watched the trailer for Gladiator 2, and I don't know why that movie exists. I guess it makes more sense than a Heat 2, which is happening, right? He wrote the book, the novelization of Heat 2. Because I just rewatched Heat. And while watching Heat and thinking about Collateral at the same time, I thought to myself, Michael Mann would have been such a great choice to make a Max Payne game. Not a game, a movie. Jesus. But I don't know who would play Max Payne, because so crucial to the character of Max Payne is the voice. And I don't know who can do that voice, or if it's that that McCaffrey is just so Max Payne to me that I can't think of anyone else. Could just be the problem is that I love his performance. His voice works so much that I can't really think of anyone else. I thought maybe a little earlier in his career, Tom Hardy, because in thinking about his work, I feel like he's been able to do some different voices, and he has a bit of that natural, dirty gravitas to his voice. Whereas someone like Ryan Gosling, for instance, who I wouldn't think would be a good choice in any way, shape, or form, he has more of a whiny voice? That's not exactly the right word for it, but he can be intimidating in ways, but his voice is not one of those ways. He does not have that kind of voice, and I've never seen any role of his where he's changed his voice in a way that I thought, that's an intimidating voice. No, that's a bit of a whiny little voice. I love Ryan Gosling, but his voice is not something I look at and think, I want a voice like that. But I don't know who else. It's hard. It's hard casting him because he's so iconic to me, and I think other fans of the series. But in terms of vibes and the look, the feel, all of that, I think Michael Mann is pretty much the perfect choice. Some would say Tony Scott. R.I.P., of course. But I think people who say that are just people who look at Man of Fire and Max Payne 3 and say it's the same thing, and that's because it is. Max Payne 3 should have just been a Man on Fire game because it's not a Max Payne game. It's a great game, it's not a great Max Payne game. In the same way that people will say Resident Evil 5, it's a fun co-op game, but it's not a great Resident Evil game. Heat, though, is pretty good. Based on the book? Yes? No? Not sure. I liked it quite a bit. I think Al Pacino can be a bit much at times. I don't always love his little storyline with his wife and stepdaughter. And I think the way it ends, it's a bit anticlimactic in that I don't know if I believe. It just feels like we've seen throughout this entire movie, De Niro's character is incredibly intelligent, and then he just lets stupidity fuck him over in the end. But if there is a Heat 2, and there's already the story, I think, what the fuck is Heat 2? What continuation of that sort? Where do you go from there? From the end of Heat, what the fuck is there to tell? Everyone's dead. It would just have to be completely new. It would have to be a sequel in the same way that U.S. Marshals is a sequel to The Fugitive, in that it's not really a continuation, really, but here's another story with Pacino's character following a completely different group of would-be robbers or something or other. Because no one, I guess Val Kilmer had a kid. So the kid's grown up. He's going to seek out revenge on Pacino. This is another Beyond the fucking, what is it, Place Beyond the Pines situation. I don't want it. But Gladiator 2, I don't get it. And that the main actor who I liked in After it's just After Sun. I really liked that movie. Did not like Something About Strangers. What is it? Something Strangers, where a writer goes back to his childhood home and his parents are there, young. Ghostly shit. I think that it was not handled particularly well. But After Sun was quite good. But he seems like he's an interesting choice for a Gladiator. But I don't like the first movie, and I don't know why we have to get... It's so weird to think that we're in this place where even movies that seem so like such one-off things are getting sequels now. We're so bankrupt for ideas that we have to go back. Here's Gladiator 2. Are we going to get from Spielberg Saving Private Ryan 2? Schindler's Other List? EET? The Extra? What is ET? ET the extra? Is it extraterrestrial? Is that what they're called? So EET the extraterrestrial? Extra. Read all about it. ET's back, baby. It's fucking... The movie industry is not the most exciting right now. So that's why I just want the movie industry to say, hey, those few movies that still aren't on Blu-ray, we're finally going to put them out, and then you don't have to worry about anything ever again, and you can just keep watching the same old shit. Because I also rewatched Groundhog Day. Fantastic movie. I love that movie. That is in my grouping of perfect movies. I adore that movie so much. I hate Scrooged, and I was thinking about it while watching it this time in that, in ways, Groundhog Day is just Scrooged, but done well, and not following that same structure. But it gives you the same kind of redemption-ish arc and whatnot. But I love that movie. I'm not a huge Bill Murray fan, but and I really don't like. Is it McDowell? Is that? I always confuse her with other. I think it's McDowell. I'm not a huge fan of hers. I find that she often plays just unlikable characters. I don't have a problem with her as an actor, but in the movie Green Card, did not like her. I don't think she was bad in Michael, that I didn't like Michael. But there's something else with her, I feel like. But I love Groundhog Day. It's so good. It's very funny, but it also, there's heart to it, and there's also some real dark elements and some sad stuff about it too. The part where he is trying to save the old man. It goes places that you wouldn't expect. You going into it, you would think this is just going to be a real lighthearted comedy, but there are parts where he is just killing himself to try and escape this repetition. And then the part with it's a very, 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 very good movie. I love it so much. And I think I need to watch more movies like that, because I've been watching a lot of longer or not dark movies, but I haven't been watching many comedies because I feel like I can watch those at any time. I can watch them in the background, so it doesn't really matter. I can just watch those whenever. I don't need to set aside my oatmeal time for those movies, but maybe I should. I've been considering rewatching Forgetting Sarah Marshall for a while now, and I started it once, and then I stopped it saying, I can watch this whenever. Why watch it now? So maybe that'll be next. But I want to watch some new stuff first, though. And then I did try and watch Grand Prix, starring James Garner. And I made it about 2 hours and 20 minutes into it. And then I stopped. I did not want to keep watching it because it's about a 2 hour and 50-minute movie. And you're probably saying, you made it that far, why not just finish it? I'm pretty sure what was left was just another race, which is the highlight of the movie. The movie has incredible racing sequences that are shot and edited very well. The editing in particular is very engaging. There's a lot of split screen stuff that is cool and neat and different. And I love that element of it. And I think a part of what makes the sequences so captivating and keeps you engaged is the fact that they're all doing their own racing, their own driving. James Garner is driving. He does all his own driving. And I saw a little factoid that 5 years after the movie was made, 5 of the drivers involved in it died, and then 5 years later, another 5. It's a weird trivia point that a lot of people who worked on this died in crashes or some shit. I was like, fuck. That's depressing. But the problem with the movie is that all of the off-track drama is so dull and boring and loaded. This movie does not have to be 2 hours and 50 minutes. They could have cut a lot of shit. There's so much shit in it that doesn't need to be there. And I don't know why it's there. It sucks. It's unfortunate because I really want to like it. And I want to put it in my collection because the driving sequences are so well done, but I could never see myself ever watching it again. I didn't even finish it, as I already said, because a good chunk of the movie, probably 2/3. So I'd say an hour and 15 minutes is racing, maybe hour and 15 minutes. And then the rest is just boring fucking drama. So that was a bummer. But yeah, that's about enough of that. So let's get on to what I've been playing, starting with Terra Memoria. This is a turn-based RPG that harkens back to the olden days, the PS1 days in ways, and has a bit of that HD 2D look to it, but not entirely. It's not fully pixelated 3D high fidelity visuals like a Octopath Traveler, but it has a bit of that look. It looks very, very good. I like the character designs. I like the look of the world, the overall art in general. I like a lot. And I like the combat, which I'll get to. But the Achilles heel for me is that I don't like the story, I don't like the characters, and I don't like the writing. It's not bad, but it's generic, whatever, lacking in personality that interests me at least. So all of that stuff doesn't really do it for me. And while I do like the combat, I'll say this up front, it's too fucking easy. It's pretty mindless. I played it for a few hours and was never challenged once. Even when fighting bigger enemies, boss type characters, there's just no challenge at all there. You can only level up as well at campsites. So you could be gaining a lot of XP through fights, but if you don't go back to a campsite to level up, it'll all be for naught. But what I like about the combat is that you have your main party members, your fighters, and then you have support characters who will randomly attach to one of your fighters at the start of every battle. And it'll differ between each battle. And what these support characters can do, for example, is one, the bard, if they attach to a character, they can switch out their attacks and heals to the opposite. So if you use their ability on a heal, it'll transform that into an attack. So if you have a really strong heal, you can turn that into a very strong attack, and vice versa. And then you have this other character who joins, and when they're attached to a fighter, if you use their ability, they can change a single attack to a multi-attack. So if you have a really strong attack that only targets one enemy, you can change that so that it'll target all the enemies. It'll lessen the damage a bit, but if it's really, really strong, it can still be more powerful than your default multi-attacks. And also, every attack has a certain element tied to it. So if you have a single target attack that has an element that can affect all of the enemies you're currently fighting against, it makes sense to turn that into a multi-enemy attack. That is, if the support character is attached to the right character. It's random, so it may or may not go your way there. But the combat works on an order system, a turn order, and depending on what attacks you use, your next turn will be further away or shorter. And if where you would fall in the order is already taken up by another character or another enemy, then you'll just be pushed further down the line. I like that type of system. And with the enemies, they all have shields. When you break a shield, it'll send them to the back of the line. Mostly, I don't think it's exactly to the back of the line, but it'll send them way down the line, which will allow you to throw in another few attacks, typically. But that system of breaking an enemy shield doesn't go both ways. Your characters don't have any shields, so you can't have a shield break on you and then lose a bunch of time and turns potentially from having your shield get broken. which feels a bit unfair for the enemies, for the AI, because you never have to worry about that, but the enemies do, and they will regain their shield after a few turns, but by then you'll probably have already defeated them, because again, the combat is super easy. Maybe it gets more challenging as the game goes on, but I've played it for quite a while and never once had any kind of challenge, which is a bit of a bummer, because it made it so that the combat, even though I really like the system and I like playing with elements and stuff like that, the lack of challenge made it so that I wasn't really engaging with combat, because I knew I didn't have to. So I would hold the right trigger to fast forward to make combat go by faster, and I would just use my multi-attacks over and over and over again. I wouldn't even care about the element aspect, because I didn't have to think about that. The shield would break, and then they go send to the back. And when their shield is broken, they are weak to all elements. So it's an alright turn-based RPG, and I don't think it's particularly long, but it falls short in a few ways that makes it something that maybe you play if you have nothing else to play, but it wouldn't be a game I would recommend seeking out over others. That is, again, Terra Memoria. Then we have BioInk Redemption, which is a game where you can play as either a life-saving doctor or a murdering psychopathic doctor, where you are either trying to cure your patient of various illnesses before they can kill them, before they can take their life, or on the opposite end, trying to kill someone before doctors can completely cure them. And the way this works is that while you're looking at this person's various body sections, looking between them, they'll have little white blood cells or red blood cells or other things popping up around them, and you hold the right trigger and move the cursor by them to collect this resource, which you then use to either diagnose illnesses and find out what is causing their symptoms on the life-saving end, or giving them certain illnesses on the life-taking side. And you're just doing this over and over and over again. It becomes incredibly repetitive. You go around, you toggle between the various parts of their body, the various organs and whatnot, and collect these resources. And then when you have enough resources to either give them a few tests to see what they have, what is causing their symptoms, or give them various illnesses, you go back to the resource gathering area, you collect some more resources, level up to make it go a bit faster, get a bit more for your resources, and you're just doing this over and over again. And that's the entire game. It is kind of neat for 30 minutes, but once you realize that's all you're going to be doing and it's not going to get any different, it gets boring, and boring very fast. There's also something a little weird about the life-taking side of it that feels extra. I didn't like. I think it's a lot easier to play the murdering side, because on the murdering side, all you're doing is you're collecting these resources and then you're going through their various things and picking illnesses to give them. Some of them are locked off until they hit a certain age, so you can't give someone who is 30 years old Alzheimer's, for instance. Even though I think there are rare cases of very young, I don't know that young, but I believe there are certain cases of Alzheimer's in younger people. But that's all you're doing on that side. On the life-saving side, you have to look at their symptoms, and then it'll give you, when you go through them, it'll give you the parts of their body that are susceptible to this, and then you can go to these various parts and test to see which thing is actually being affected to find out what is exactly wrong, and then you could treat that. It's a lot more difficult on the life-saving side because you have to first find out what's wrong, and then you have to treat it. And finding out what is wrong, doing these tests, that costs the resource you're gathering, and then to treat them, that costs the resource you're gathering. On the life-taking side, all you're doing is giving them illnesses. You don't have to do any extra thing. You give them an illness, and that'll open up a new, more potentially damaging illness, and then you can go to that. So it is a lot easier to take someone's life than save it, which may be accurate to real life, probably, but it's just a very repetitive game where I kind of like some ideas here, but it's very shallow. It seems like a good first draft that should be expanded upon in ways, because I see potential here, and I do like the idea, but in execution, the executing is a lot easier than the saving. But also, it's just, I had my fill. I played a few games, failed killing the first patient, because I think one of the things they would encourage you to do is don't focus on a few systems, focus on failing all their systems. Then they can't handle it. And I murdered that first person real good. And then I failed saving the person because it's just I got so unlucky trying to save this person. Every test I was running, oh, this is negative, fucking test something else. Every fucking time, it would end up being the last thing I tested that they had. And then I'm like, fucking, I'm wasting so much time here. And there's also a part that will randomly happen, because there are also random things that go in there that might, or probably are trying to give the game a bit more variety and throw a wrench in the repetitive side of things, in that the person you are trying to kill may help you out by overeating, getting obese, or becoming a heavy drinker. They'll occasionally have unprotected sex, and then you spin a wheel that may or may not give them an STD that'll weaken their immune system and stuff like that. Or they might start eating healthy. They can do something against your wishes. Or if you're trying to save their life, maybe that'll be beneficial to you. What I thought was funny, though, was that when I was just about done killing my first patient, they were at maybe 6% life left. Thinking about all the things I gave them. They also, I don't know if I gave them testicular cancer, but they had unprotected sex. And I'm thinking to myself, realistically, you should be on your deathbed right now. Who are you having unprotected sex with? Is this one of them freaking porno situation, quote unquote reality situation? Oh my God, my doctor's here. Oh, they're gonna give me a good time. It's fucking whatever. Also weird that I just remembered, what makes the killing your character part really, really weird. And this goes for saving characters too, but it's fine with saving it. But it's weird with the ability to play the bad version and try to kill your patient. You can name the patients. You pick their sex and their name. And I don't know if there was one other factor, but I just feel like it's weird that you can potentially name these characters that you're trying to kill after people you know in real life, and getting some kind of sick pleasure from it. I don't like that. Give me something more like Plague Inc., where I'm doing a reverse pandemic and trying to kill everyone in the world. Let me kill everyone instead of one person. I'm way more comfortable killing everyone than one person. But that is Bio Inc. Redemption. Then Windstorm, Start of a Great Friendship Remastered, is a game where you play a young lady who goes back to her family farm, I think. The story doesn't really matter. But you are just hanging out with your horse, doing little tasks here and there, like trying to reach a certain part of the map in a certain amount of time without guidance, doing checkpoint-based races, doing obstacle courses where you're jumping over things, or going to a specific location to find a picturesque moment and taking a picture. And then as you're doing all this stuff, your horse will get a little tired and dirty. You got to clean them up and all that. And it's a perfectly fine, pleasant little thing. I had the most fun in just doing the free roaming and going after collectibles. I found it quite relaxing. They really pump up the ambient sounds in the game quite a bit. It feels good to control. It's really simple. You got a little walk, gallop, and then you can sprint for a certain amount of time. You level up your horse over time. It's nothing too crazy, but a pleasant time. Looks not too bad. The one performance issue, though, that it does have is whenever you are jumping over something, the game fucking freaks the fuck out. It will sometimes just kind of stutter or completely glitch out in a way that it seems like the animation wasn't done correctly and your horse is meant to jump over something, or it just has a single animation and it doesn't matter the level of the height of the thing you're jumping over, and if it's not right, then your character just fucking flops. The jump will be successful, but for a second your character will just judder in one direction or another direction, super high or super off, and it always takes you out every single time. I hate jumping over shit because it's fucking annoying. When you get to something you have to jump over right when you're about to hit that jump. For certain things, you can jump over other elements as well, but specific things that are just placed in the environment for jumping over, a little bar will come up and you have to hit the jump button in the green area to get a successful jump, a perfect jump. But it's a pretty laid back experience. Sometimes someone will ask you to go find something in the environment, or deliver this to someone, or whatever basic task. Played it for a few hours and I liked, again, most of all, just exploring the world, going after collectibles, just having a chill little time. I don't think it's something I'll play a whole bunch more of because it's fine, but I thought it was a much more pleasant experience than expected. I wasn't quite sure what to expect. I was curious about it because I don't know if this is the same horse game I remember from a little while back, or if that was a different one. But I feel like ones I've played before were a bit more janky. And yes, the jump here is janky, but remove that, it may not be the most engaging game for a lot of people. But if you just want a game where you have a horse companion who you go on tasks with, and you can take pretty pictures of this or that with, and you can groom them and pet them and take care of them, and then just go out on a stroll with. I don't know how many options are there. There's this in Red Dead Redemption 2. And in Red Dead Redemption 2, you're going to have to deal with someone trying to kill your horse. No one's trying to kill your horse in a Windstorm. So plus 1 for Windstorm. Then we have the Garten of Banban or Banban games, 1 through 4. I think they're up to 7 on PC, but they just recently put these on console. And the first one is just a demo. I don't know if it also has achievements, but that is free and just has a demo. Then 2 and 3 are $5, and 4 is $10. It seems like they continue as you go through them and pick up where the last one left off. And this is a first-person horror game that is clearly trying to feed off the scraps of the Five Nights at Freddy's games. But instead of you being locked in place and having to worry about protecting yourself in a locked position, it's more of a traditional first-person walking horror simulator type of thing, where you are trying to avoid getting taken by this creature or that creature. I really don't like these games. I played through all of them to various degrees. There's a puzzle element to them, and a lot of them revolve around one of the series' unique elements, which is your trusty drone companion that you can control by looking at something and saying, hey, go here. And if it can go there, it'll go there. But you have to position it so that if they can't just go straight there, then you look somewhere else and you say, go here first, then go here. And controlling that drone is just a pain in the ass. I found it very, very annoying and frustrating. And then the game itself isn't very scary. The assets they use in it are very poor. The level design is not great. I would assume that this, because there are 7 of them at the very least, this is the kind of thing that does well enough to keep going and is probably a hit with the streamer and the enjoyer of watching streamer clientele. And based off of what I played, I am assuming they're not probably the most expensive games to make. So they're easy enough to throw out. And it seems kind of like what is happening here too is one game is just being broken up into pieces and released piecemeal. I can't confirm or deny that, but I was not interested in these at all. Because for me, horror games like this, they really need an engaging and interesting story for me to care and want to play through them, because these are not my types of games typically. So I need something like a Soma that has an incredible story to pull me through, or even Layers of Fear. Soma I got through because the story is so good and it had a safe mode. Layers of Fear I played through and really enjoyed without a safe mode because it did not rely on sheep being chased sections, instant kill sections and stuff like that. I can only remember one specific area where that happened, but even then I feel like it only happened if you had to kind of let it happen, and it was more about the vibe, the mood, the atmosphere, and the story it was telling. So that is what I need, and that's definitely not here in these Banban games. I wish I could see what people see in these kinds of games. I'm always open to trying, and I will say, at least with the Freddy's games, the Five Nights at Freddy's games, I see the appeal there. I played the first one up through, I got to night 4, I think. And it's not my kind of game at all. I am a big old baby, and I found right from the start that game, that whole experience, to be incredibly tense and unappealing and unpleasant, and I was not having a good time. But I streamed it, and I'm sure they were having a good time fucking laughing at my ass. But I see the appeal there. It's so simple, such a simple concept, but it's a genius concept. I think a lot of simple things that are done well and successful and become successful are genius. I mean, I think the proof is in the success of the Five Nights at Freddy's games. And I see why it became successful and why it's appealing. It's just not for me. I don't see what is appealing about these Banban games outside of I don't know what. Because the creature design is just, hey, it's as if someone gave someone a bunch of Play-Doh, a bunch of putty, and said, you've got a minute, create something creepy. And this is the shit they gave us. So, Garten of no for me. Then FROGUE is roguelike platformer with an interesting twist to gameplay that I wish I liked more, because I really, really like the idea of it. But I think it's implemented in a way that somewhat takes away from its potential. So the way it works is that, like a traditional roguelike, you're going from room to room to room. So I think something more akin to Binding of Isaac and stuff like that, where you go into a room, then some enemies spawn, take them out, and then the pathways to rooms will open up again. The way it works, though, is that instead of being able to just move around, jump around freely, you lock into a place, and then you're able to jump from where you are to a select few spots, depending on where you are and where you're trying to go. So if there's a pathway that you can see that's in your line of sight, you'll potentially be able to go there. I like this idea, but the spaces you're able to jump to, they're incredibly limited. And it makes the whole navigating the area feel really limited in a way I did not like. Because another element is that when you're not moving, the enemies aren't moving either. It's got a bit of what is that name? Super hot aspect to it, where when you move, and this is also very akin to traditional rogue games, where it'll be a top-down dungeon crawler, or like Legends of Grimrock, where when you're not moving, nothing is happening. When you move a space, then the enemies will do one movement as well. You perform an action, they'll perform an action, and so on. So when you're not moving, the enemies aren't moving. When you make a movement, they'll either move, or they'll start to initiate an attack or fire off a bullet. And then based on what is happening, you can decide what to do next. I think all of that is great, but the limitation on your movement, on where you can go, makes it feel like my options aren't as great as I would like them to be. Because there are plenty of instances where I feel like I should be able to go here as well, but it's only allowing me to go to these 4 different spaces, and everything else is completely locked off. And I kind of understand the reasoning, because if they gave you free movement to jump wherever you want within your line of sight, it could maybe get finicky with making sure you're jumping to a place that you can then land on. It's a tricky thing. But in the bit I played, I just wasn't quite jiving with it in the way I wanted to, because again, I really, really like the idea. But we'll see. It's a game that is unique enough and structured in a way I like, that I am willing to give it some more time and see if it grows on me, if it's just something I have to get used to. early impression is a bit disappointing there. And True Colors, A Date with Deception is a visual novel that I really, really did not like. So this is a game where you are a young person working regular job, and at your job 3 new employees are hired, and you can chat them up like you do in a visual novel. There are some really weird music choices in the game that I fucking hated. The first music is some weirdo, it's like some beatboxing music that just does not fit at all. And then occasionally throughout the game there are these Looney Tunes sound effects. The sound design in this game is fucking all over the place. Sometimes it's fine, and then sometimes it's just, what are we doing here? What is going on? But it plays out like a traditional visual novel throughout most of it. And then in the end, I got a bad ending. It turns out that your character is not a good person. I don't want to spoil it. I'll also say, I can't remember if the game said anything about trigger warnings when I started it, but if you have any issue with certain things, maybe look into what's in the game if you're a visual novel fan, but you have things that may not make you comfortable. But I don't want to spoil it. I'll just say that you end up not being a great person. In fact, you're a pretty despicable person. And what I didn't like is that it feels as if this is an attempt to be something like a Doki Doki Literature Club thing, where you're expecting it to just be this traditional visual novel, but instead it goes into these weird places and gets weird and gets different and surprises you. What I don't like is in games that give you choices and in a way has you embodying these characters, or in some case, especially in a game like this, has it more so being like you are the main character, to then have that character go off and do some shit that the way you're playing, the way you're behaving, it's not in line with that. I don't like games that offer choices and then have specific narrative directions they want to go through and then just take away control from you and say whatever you were doing doesn't fucking matter because this was planned all along. It just feels like I've been wasting my time the whole time, and it ruins games for me. It was this way in Heavy Rain, for instance, where the person who turned out to be the killer, based on how I was playing as that person, that shit didn't make any fucking sense. That ruined the whole game for me, because when that happened, I just, it's like, what? How does this make sense given the way I was playing? Why would they have done this and this and this if in the end this is, fuck you, game. Fuck you, Heavy Rain. You fucking piece of shit. You ruined the whole fucking thing. That was a case of a game ruining it itself. Ruining the whole experience with a horrible ending. And I forget, there was another example I had that I was thinking about earlier today. But I don't like that. I don't like, oh yeah, Spec Ops The Line. In Spec Ops The Line, there is that big moment that I won't spoil. You can watch my Attack the Backlog. I talk about it there as well. But it is a moment that worked for so many people, obviously, because many people love it, and a lot of people talk about it as one of the greatest games of all time, blah, 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 blah. But in that moment, I was not under no illusions as to what I was looking at. I knew what I was looking at, and I did not want to do what the game wanted me to do, because I knew it was not a good thing. But I could not progress in the game unless I did that. And so I had to do it. I did it. And then when you see the aftermath, you see what you did. And it's meant to be this moment where you are taken aback, where you are hit with this emotional realization that you thought you were doing this one thing, but you were actually doing something else. there was none of that for me because I knew I was not surprised by what I saw. I knew that was what I was going to see because it was fucking obvious. There was no fucking confusion there. So the game in that moment took away control from me, didn't allow me to make a choice there, forced this decision upon me, and then expected me to feel the emotional weight of it as if I made it on my own and had to deal with the consequences of my actions. I didn't have to. I didn't have to deal with the consequences of my actions because they weren't my actions. They were the actions forced upon me by the game, and the game trying to make me feel like they were. Fuck Spec Ops: The Line. That's what True Colors: A Date with Deception is really saying. It's really just a way of me being able to say again, Spec Ops: The Line. Fuck you. You're overrated. You're not good. You're whatever. Fuck off. And then Bouncy Chicken is just a game where you have single screen area, top down view. You're a chicken, and then you aim in a direction, and then you roll yourself to try and collect various haystacks in an area within a certain turn limit or a number of turns. You have a number of throws of your chicken to do each level, and there'll be obstacles as you're progressing that get more and more challenging, that move around the environment, rotate and stuff, and will affect your bouncing. But it's overall very, very easy to get through levels. There's no par score or anything, so you have a certain number of turns you can do that you have to complete a level. But there's no star system or anything, so you don't have to. It's just you either complete a level or you don't, and that kind of takes away from the fun of it because you don't have to try and figure out the best route to collect all the haystacks in one go or something like that. So the challenge of it isn't there. So it gets pretty boring when you realize it doesn't really matter. You don't have to try, and you have enough turns to get through any level without really even thinking about it. It's nice when you do collect them all in one go because you get a bit of music playing, but other than that, there's not much reason to care about trying to collect everything in one go. So that's Bouncy Chicken. It's fine. Get some easy achievements or trophies from it, and be happy with that. But yeah, that will do it for this here episode of the Pixelated Sausage Show. Once again, I am Mark Kuznez. Y'all can find me pretty much everywhere at PX Sausage. If you enjoy this here show or any of the stuff I do and what have you, you can support me and my nonsense over at patreon.com/PXS. There you can get access to a monthly Q&A, some fancy Discord roles, a private Discord channel called the Cool Kids Club for, of course, the cool kids, as well as some random drops here and there and other goodies, or you can just support me if that is your fancy. That is again patreon.com/PXS. In addition to the Patreon, you can find links to the site, the YouTube, the Discord, and so much more over at pxsausage.com. But that is it. That is all. Also, the upcoming episode, the upcoming new game for Attack the Backlog is Lego 2K Drive. So get excited for that. New episode will be dropping this here Sunday, which is July whatever. But look forward to episode 1 of that then. But yeah, that is it. That is all. As always, thank you for watching or listening. I hope you enjoyed this here episode, and I hope you have both a wonderful rest of your day, a lovely rest of your week, and a wonderful weekend. But for now, adios, arrivederci, bye bye.
It's go time. Go, daddy. It's go time. Go, Daddy.